And that's doing good at singing today? Wow. So Nancy and Jeanette are going to come up here and lead us. Luke could play. Okay. So what I'm going to do instead of we'll pray. We'll take the offering. We'll go right into the Bible's thing. We get done. I'm not promising this. So we get done early. I'll let you look. Okay. Maybe I should, wherever I get, I said, well, we'll stop there this week, we'll go in, yeah, yeah. Because we're going, basically now we're in Exodus, we're going through all the laws and trying to give you understanding of what was being conveyed there, okay? Um, and then after a couple weeks or so of this, then probably, I'm not going to just go through all the details of all the tabernacle. I'm just going to get a good presentation online of something that shows us the tabernacle and how it was and all that, so it's visual, you can see it. There's only one thing in between giving the details of the tabernacle and the actual doing of the tabernacle, and that's when they have the golden calf incident. So we'll deal with that too in there in the middle, but yeah. Okay, so would someone like to open in prayer, and then we'll take an offering. Okay, Paul?
Father, thank you for giving us this place to worship you and the freedom to do it. We pray for those who are out on their snowy roads, that you give them travel mercies wherever they have to go to. Pray that that you give us a heart to hear what you're saying to us in your word as we study this.
Mm-hmm.
So we thank you for that, and we ask that you bless us to give from our heart through this little offering that we offer tonight, and use it to glorify you in some way. So we ask and thank you in Jesus' name.
Amen. Okay. Offering, please. Offering person. There we go. Good. Thank you. Okay. So we'll go back to Exodus 21. Exodus 21 tonight. And beginning with verse 12. Last week we looked at slavery. Okay, verse 12. This is what it says. It says, whoever strikes a man so that he dies shall be put to death. So that one's pretty straightforward, okay? Capital punishment. And again, where was the first passage in the scripture where that is conveyed? Remember? Or about when? Or time period? Well, there was a murder then, but when did God just come out and say there should be capital punishment for the taking of life? Right after they get off the ark, right there in Genesis 9. You remember that, Paul? Let's look at Genesis 9 then. We'll see what we can. Verse 6. Who would like to read verse 6? Yeah, Derek?
Whoever sheds the blood of a man, by man shall his blood be shed. For God made man in his own image.
Okay, so this is right after the flood. They come out, and here, you have the statement here about capital punishment right here, right away. Because God opens it up in this passage for them to be able to actually take animals and kill them for food, okay? But then it comes down here to man, for man, no, okay? So they were all vegetarians before that, I think. Okay? So Noah on the ark, nice lettuce salad every day. Okay? All right. So that one's really straightforward here in Exodus, the first one. All right? Now we come to verse 13. And verse 13 says, but if he did not lie in wait for him, but God let him fall into his hand. Then I will appoint for you a place for which he may flee. All right? So when it's an accidental death, for some reason, some reason you accidentally kill someone, friendly fire in a war, something like that, it wasn't intentional. It's not, in fact, our laws are based off this. God is going to give a place for them to flee. Now, why would he have to give them a place to flee? Remember, later he will give actually sanctuary cities for people to flee. Well, the mentality in the ancient Near East and in this area and their time was, probably the best way to explain it would be, think of the Hatfield and McCoys. Okay, there's this belief that if someone is killed by another family in your family, then you should return the favor and kill somebody in their family. That's just justice. Okay, even for no matter why they were killed, you just assume that they're killed. So it's your duty as a kin to go make sure you get the responsibility to go make sure you kill one of the other family. Okay? And so God is making a clear distinction here. There's cases where it's accidental. It was not intended. There was no. So, and in our laws, we do the same thing. Different degrees of murder, right? We try to write that into our laws. Now, the places where, again, we don't probably need to go to the passages, but like in Numbers 35, there's a long section there about the cities that will be established for a person to run to. Now, do you remember how long a person is supposed to stay again in that city? We just dealt with this a few weeks ago. Until when? Okay, until the death of the high priest. Okay? If they left that sanctuary city before that, they're fair game. Okay? So that happens, and then Joshua 21, it's sort of like it's when it's set up, okay, after they've conquered and these things are being done and the cities are being set up at that point. Okay? Verse 14 then, okay, we come to 14. But if a man willfully attacks another to kill him by cunning, you shall take him from my altar that he may die. Now, one of the things a person might do if he's killed somebody and he's trying to protect himself, he might want forgiveness. And so someone might run to God's altar, grab hold of the horns of the altar, thinking that's a holy place. Perhaps there's a couple reasons. One, it identifies where that's the place of forgiveness. That's where animals are sacrificed for forgiveness. But it's also a holy place that might slow somebody down from coming in and somehow them becoming guilty before God of violating the holy space. All right?
Quite a few places in the history where that happens.
Yeah, there's a couple places. So let's look at those. Look at 1 Kings 1:50. 1 Kings 1:50 and 51. 1 Kings chapter 1. And again, would someone like to volunteer to read tonight? Any of the growing up kids here too? I'll get some of you guys involved. I don't care. You want to read it, Paul, right now? The next one that we'll get, but you guys get ready, okay? The next one's okay, Paul. Read it.
And Adonijah feared Solomon, so he arose and went and took hold of the horns of the altar.
Okay. And
Keep going.
did you 50 and 51? I don't know if you. Yeah.
Then it was told Solomon, behold, Adonijah fears King Solomon, for behold, he has laid hold of the horns of the altar, saying, let King Solomon swear to me first that he will not put his servant to death with the sword.
Okay, go ahead. Just read out the rest of that.
Solomon said, if he will show himself a worthy man, not one of his hairs shall fall to the earth. But if wickedness is found in him, he shall die. So King Solomon sent, and they brought him down from the altar. And he came and paid homage to King Solomon. And Solomon said to him, go to your house.
Okay, so in this case, because of fear, he runs. Now, by the way, who is this person that we're dealing with here? What's his relationship to Solomon? his brother. Okay, so he was trying to get, remember, he was the one trying to get the throne, okay? And so Solomon ends up getting it. Of course, when this all takes place, then Adonijah knows the danger he could be in, so he runs there right away. Now, in this case, he's not immediately executed, okay? He's just concerned. He will be later because of what he asked for Bathsheba, or not Bathsheba, or sorry, not Bathsheba, but he asked for David's, the one that came and laid, I think, with David just to keep him warm at the end of his life. Okay, yeah. So he'll end up beating death, but not immediately in this case, okay? Now look at 1 Kings 2. You find it there?
Abishai, yeah, let's see, 2:17.
2:17? Okay. Yeah, go ahead and read that part.
And he said, please ask King Solomon, he will not refuse you, to give me Abishag, the Shunamite, as my wife.
Okay, so that's the request, but again, Solomon knows how this could lead to undermining him. And in fact, he says that basically then, right after this. And so he knows the threat. So now, down in verse 25, it says, so King Solomon sent Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, and he struck him down, and he died. Okay? So he still ends up being put to death because he's a threat to the throne, and he has brought that out. He would have been much smarter if he would have just, I'm not going to get the throne, just leave it alone, but he didn't. Okay? Then we come to 229, because here's another problem, that David had a commander who was a problem to him. Why was Joab such a problem to David? Even though he was a great commander?
He killed the head of the general.
Okay, well, when they were going to make peace between the kingdom, right, the 10, and right? Took out, yeah, that was one case, okay. But Joab was one like that. He was ruthless. He chased down. In fact, what really grieved David's heart, remember that one of the hardest things that happened, David lost someone because of Joab that was very close to him, even though that one was doing really wrong to David. Absalom, yeah, good, Absalom. And Job didn't listen. Job pursued and killed him, right? So these were things that David communicated to Solomon. You know, watch, okay? So in this case, again, notice what happens in 229. Let's see again. Yeah, 229. Okay, would someone like to read 229? Yeah, go ahead, Nora.
And when it was told to King Solomon, Joab has fled to the tent of the Lord, and behold, he is beside the altar. Solomon sent
Benaiah,
the son of Jehoiada, saying, go strike him down.
Okay, so did it do him any good to go to the altar? No, it didn't. Okay, it didn't. And basically that's what it's telling us in our text here. God says, even if they go to the altar, that's not going to be a way out for them. If they're guilty of murder, they deserve to die. Okay? Even if they go and grab a hold of the horns of the altar. Yeah.
Well, is that where they went if they accidentally killed someone initially? You think?
About what?
Like,
Accident.
why would people go to the altar in the first place? Is that like where you went to like ask for favor or to like be like, it was an accident, don't kill me?
I don't know if they did it for an accident. I don't think so. But I think they had judges. We'll be dealing with other cases here where there's some discretion for judges to make a decision. But like I said earlier, I think it's just that it was a holy place that would slow people out. Say, how dare we go and kill somebody who's clinging to the altar? Now, I don't know how long they were planning on clinging to the altar. Okay. You could just wait them out, right? Yeah, yeah. I mean, they would get pretty hungry after a while, right? But yeah. So you got those cases. So we go back to our text now in Exodus 21. Let's keep moving on some of these. Okay. Some of these will be harder to understand. Verse, let's see, now we're down to verse 15, I believe it is. Yeah. Verse 15, whoever strikes his father or his mother shall be put to death. Now again, reading commentaries, it probably wasn't a rash kind of a situation where they just happened to push off their mother or father, and it was probably more a public kind of an attack. And we'll see this in a minute too, even other ways. But this kind of a, going against the authority of the parents, it's very severe consequences. They truly, get in a fight or, really strike their parents. It was the death penalty. Okay, that's incredible. It wasn't just a fun wrestling match we're talking about. We're talking about, dishonoring their parents and not paying attention, rebelling and actually striking your mother or father. It was the death penalty. Okay. Okay. That should get their attention. Okay. If they, this is the question all the way through the Old Testament: is how much did they actually do what they were told to do? Okay. They may have started really good at first, put some of these things into play, but were they very faithful in carrying them out? That's the question. Next one: whoever steals a man and sells him, and anyone found in possession of him shall be put to death. Okay, so kidnapping is a federal. It's a capital crime too. Okay, death penalty. Verse 17: whoever curses his father or mother shall be put to death. Again, that's the one where they think probably it was not just an incidental where nobody hardly heard, but probably a more public kind of thing of dishonoring their father and mother before others. Although we don't know for sure, okay? But that's serious too. You should be getting the idea of how important that fifth commandment is and how it was applied to honor your father and mother. You don't strike them, and you don't curse them. And if God felt that strongly about that relationship of authority with their kids, you can think of, people will get what God thinks about any kind of, what would people think about any kind of response like that to Him, to God? Okay, it's like, you better listen, and that's what we'll find when we come over to some of the others. Yeah.
I was just thinking, as a parent too, like in our culture now, like parents allow their children to dishonor and disobey them.
Mm-hmm.
With this as a parent, knowing that like if you're not teaching your child how they should behave and how they should respect you, they could be put to death for your own
lack of
parenting.
disciplining them.
Yeah.
That's true. If you don't hold them accountable, they could get out of undisciplined to the point where they do these things, to the point where they actually bring death to their own kids. That's true. And even if that wasn't carried out, what do we know from the Proverbs? What does it say about for parents when their kids don't follow them? Do you remember how it says it about what it brings to the parents if their kids are terrible? It brings grief. It probably brings shame, dishonor, shame, yeah, grief, yeah. And it does, doesn't it? It does. Great grief, right? Okay. Now we know it's not always the fault of the parents, right? Solomon could tell his kids, do this, I'll give you all the advice, tell you just everything. And they still would maybe not listen, right? So it's just making a statement. If they don't follow God, they can bring great shame to the parents, okay? Yeah, Nancy?
So with like these two instances with the parents striking
You mean whether the parents just kill them or else they bring it publicly?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there were, yeah, I guess I'm just asking, like, could I
Just kill your kids?
bring up a charge against Miles if I saw him publicly disrespecting, or would Katie
Oh, you
and
mean,
Derek have to?
you mean, if you saw Miles disrespecting
Never do it,
or cursing or Mason, whatever, yeah, okay, well, whoever, right?
Could I bring, or would
If you saw somebody else,
a religious leader,
okay.
would it have to be parent?
Okay, so what kind of things would we bring together, all together in Bible? If there was someone like charged with that, and let's say one person saw it or whatever, how many still do you need witnesses? You still need 2, right? Okay, so that you don't, I don't hate that kid, I'm just gonna go, I'm gonna get rid of that kid, I'm just gonna tell them they've been cursing their parents. Now, that happens in the Bible. Remember how they tried to falsely frame people? Remember how Ahab got the property he wanted? Remember what they would do? Jezebel, I'll take care of it, remember? I'll take care of it. I'll just say he's been blaspheming God, he's been, okay. Yeah. So, and death penalty. And this was totally untrue, okay? So, yeah. The depravity of man and getting, using these things for their, to get what they want, Yeah. So that's, okay, 18. When men quarrel, and one strikes the other with a stone or with his fist, and the man does not die, but takes to his bed, then if the man rises again, walks outdoors with his staff, he who struck him shall be clear. Only he shall pay for the loss of his time and shall have him thoroughly healed. Okay, so some things here. 2 men get in a fight, sounds like. Okay? It says here even, they pick up, they quarrel, one strikes the other with a stone or with a fist. Let's say he does that. And that man doesn't die. And after a period of time, he's able to get up again, walk. There's no permanent damage, it seems to indicate. Then what is the instruction? What does he have to pay for? Loss of his time that he like day's work or whatever, that is counted. Now, how much do they get for pain and suffering? Nothing. What do you think about some of the things today? You ever thought about some of the I'm going to say trumped up charges for pain and suffering, and millions of dollars awarded just for pain? I was so emotionally distraught over this or whatever. Okay, so you don't see any of that here. Okay, you don't get paid extra for pain and suffering. It's how much value you've lost in your ability to work. And that's the way it's laid out here, okay? Yeah, Katie?
I even kind of feel like that seems kind of silly just because these 2 men are fighting, not just one attack the other.
Right.
Both of the men are not making wise choices and they're both fighting.
Right.
One gets injured more than the other.
Yeah, to a point where and you'll see that this is brought out in these laws. It's almost like if people get in a fight with each other, they both know there's risk to being in a fight, okay? There just is, okay? So as we go through these, and that's sort of what we're seeing here, it's just if one taken out for a week's labor, he should be, yeah.
So if you got in a fight, do you want the other guy to beat you up more than
Yeah.
you're going to do?
Here, guys, come over here and take me away. I gotta lay down for a week. No, I don't know.
You would put a cap on things, so you
Yeah.
want to make sure you get somebody hard enough to
Sure.
half kill them or kill them.
Right.
Something like that.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So you think there's some logic of this, how they're to decide these cases and how this was to be carried out. Okay. if we could get closer to what the Bible tells us, our country would be better. The principles here we'll see as we go through these.
The last part, shall have him thoroughly healed, says, I think,
Yeah,
pay for it. Or provide his way of getting healed.
yeah, that could be too. The medical expenses maybe, huh? Right. In that case,
Or bed to sleep.
a bed in or somehow be cared for, yeah. Okay, next one, 20. When a man strikes his slave, male or female, with a rod, and the slave dies under his hand, he shall be avenged. Now, we looked at this earlier. But if the slave survives a day or two, he is not to be avenged, for the slave is his money. Okay? Avenged. So, what are we seeing there? You couldn't beat your servant to death. Okay, there's limits to how you treat your servant, right? And if he died, it's murder. Okay? So this is really different too in that culture of the day, because slaves were treated inhumanely. Think about what was going on in Egypt, okay? With the Israelites. They could be treated very inhumanely. So if your slave's being disobedient, you can do things, but if you beat them to death, then you're liable then, okay?
Is that last phrase for the slaves, his money, is that just say, hey, you're all the money you spend on your slave, you can't tell anything that's an ask for.
Right, yeah. But there's a sense in which it is his possession, it is the servant, the slave is his, okay? So, I mean, there's a double way to think about this. And you're gonna see this where, at least biblically, a slave is still considered a human being, and there should be some human treatment here, humane treatment, I should say, right? If the servant lost a day or two of work, I think that's really what that's headed towards. So, anyway, if maybe he did somebody else's slave, if maybe he did, yeah, it is, and some of this is hard, yeah.
12 hours and dies after that.
Well, yeah.
Avenged, or does he nothing?
Well, I would think if they died within a brief time, sure, where they could connect the two, it'd probably be murder, yeah, Paul. Yeah. What?
He didn't have a lot of
Yeah, autopsies, yeah. Verse 22, this is interesting. This came up, I remember when the whole issue of abortion came up in the 70s. People were trying to argue that the human life was not as much, and sometimes they weren't. So you have to be careful to look at these texts. Verse 22, when men strive together and hit a pregnant woman so that her child comes out, but there is no harm, the one who hit her shall surely be fined, and the woman's husband shall impose on him, and he shall pay as the judge determines. Okay, so in this case, there's no harm to the child, as long as that's conveyed. And again, you talk about time, it might even mean waiting until the baby is, in fact, I think it's this verse where some of the Hebrew is not real clear, and it might be trying to convey that maybe this would be determined by whether the baby, even if it continued out of term, to make sure it was okay, or if it came out sooner. Either way, as soon as they knew the baby was okay, but if a baby wasn't okay after this, then they could be held accountable. Okay? But, verse 23, but if there is harm, then you shall pay life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. Now, we know when it comes to pay life for life, and what we've already seen, that could be taken literally. But I'm not really sure that the argument here is, even though you can see that if you took out somebody's eye, then you need to have your eye taken out. or a tooth, and then you need your tooth, that was the way you do it, or hand, if something, you damage somebody's hand, then they damage your hand, or whatever. If that's not literally what's being done, what is the point that is being made here? The judgment should be what? Yeah, it should fit the crime. Okay? The judgment should fit the crime when the judge makes the decision. So not excessive, not under. It should be that kind of a thing. I believe that's really what's being conveyed here. Okay? It should fit the crime. So instead of, yeah. Now, I know the Muslims in Islam, they take some of these things pretty literally, and they do take care of things like stealing and stuff, but I don't think they get that from the Bible. What do they do for people who steal? They cut off their hand, right? Sharia law, right? They cut off their hand. So it's not the biblical law, right? Right? Okay. So, again, the point it was that the penalty should fit the crime. Verses 26 and 27. Okay. When a man strikes the eye of his slave, male or female, and destroys it, he shall let the slave go free because of his eye. So again, that's serious enough right after it says this, that they should release the slave. The next one, if he knocks out a tooth of a slave, male or female, he shall let the slave go free because of his tooth. So he doesn't talk about any other punishment at this point, but he's losing out on his property. He's losing his slave, okay? No more benefit from that person because he has done that. Those are taken that seriously, okay? Verse 28, when an ox gores a man or woman to death, the ox shall be stoned, and the flesh shall not be eaten, but the owner of the ox shall not be liable. Okay, so we'll see in a minute, if the owner had no idea that the ox would be dangerous or in any way responsible for that ox to do that, then in that case, only the ox would be put to death. Okay? And it says and not even get anything out of the meat. Okay? Though. So that could be something. And verse 29, but if the ox has been accustomed to gore in the past, and its owner has been warned, but has not kept it in, and it kills a man or woman, the ox shall be stoned, and its owner also shall be put to death. Okay? So once you know you have a dangerous animal, you're being made aware of that somehow. Either scored somebody in the past and you haven't taken, I don't know what, you can't have, in a sense, have gored somebody because they would have put it to death before, but somehow there's a way in which you know. And so think about that today. What if you had a pit bull and it already bit someone? You want to apply the Bible to something? What if you knew that dog was dangerous to others? Should the law hold you responsible if after you find that out, you don't take care of your pit bull and it does some great damage again? That not only do they destroy the pit bull, but you are severely judged and punished in some way for not taking care of that situation. See, I think that's really what's being conveyed here. Okay? If you didn't know, that's one thing. If you do know, then that's another. Again, you see how this is working through on these. Okay? You go on, if the ox has been accustomed, so did I just read that? Or I'm seeing how far I'm along here. I'm at verse 30, yeah, I think. Yeah. If a ransom is imposed on him, then he shall give for the redemption of his life whatever is imposed on him. Now, it's interesting that this is stated right after this. So is this talking about just previously? Would the judge have some discretion for a different punishment other than taking the man's life for what the animal did, or for them to look at the circumstances and see what actually truly happened. Is there some discretion here? See, that's what I think's going on here. So in this case, there might be a way for some other thing to be done to redeem the person's life.
All these next few here, 30 and 31 and 32, all belong to if the ox has been accustomed to gore in the past, right?
Yeah, yeah,
If he hasn't been, none of these apply.
yeah. I think they're connected to clarifying all this for the judge, I think. So they, you know, verse 1, if it gores a man's son or daughter, he shall be dealt with according to the same rule. Was a child or not. If the ox gores a slave, male or female, the owner shall give to the master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. Now, this is an interesting kind of statement, too. And I don't know if it's because the slave or servant's working with the ox. I don't think it's diminishing the value of the slave over other people. But there's risk with working with the animals. More like someone who signs up for the military, who ends up going out doing the orders that the lieutenant has given them to do. It may have been a bad decision by the lieutenant. They get injured severely or killed. And so it's sort of, I think it's in that kind of a thinking here. I don't think it has to do with the value of a slave's life. Okay. But notice the price of a slave at this point is how much? 30 shekels of silver, okay? And it says the ox too loses its life. It's to be stoned. How many shekels was it for Jesus? 30 shekels, okay? Now, for Joseph, how many was it? Was it 30 or not? I'm trying to remember. I was just thinking it wasn't that much. Maybe 20. The reason I'm saying that is because I just watched something on one of the shows about that value at different times with a different value according to their money systems. And let's see, where was Joseph sold? In Egypt. It's got to be around 40. Yeah, 40. 37? Okay, so how much was it? 20 shekels here. And they've discovered that at that time, that's what the price of a slave was in the time of Egypt. But now we're a little farther along, and now it's 30. Okay, it's gone up, inflation. Okay. But I just watched something, I can't remember what it was on, but they were showing how, they found out what the price was, and it meets just exactly in the time of Joseph, and that's what it was, 20 for a slave. Just proves the case again, one of those facts. Okay, let's go on. Let's see, 21:33. When a man opens a pit, or when a man digs a pit and does not cover it. Now, these have to do with being responsible, okay? Not being negligent, okay? These next ones. When a man opens a pit, or a man digs a pit and does not cover it, and an ox or a donkey falls into it, the owner of the pit shall make restoration, because he didn't take care of that. Okay, he shall give money to its owner, and the dead beast shall be his. So he pays the price of whatever was injured, killed, okay, and so then he pays the price then to the owner for what that was worth. Verse 35, when one man's ox butts another so that it dies, then they shall sell the live ox and share its price. And the dead beast also they shall share. So they're going to be equal in this case, in a sense, okay? 36, or if it is known that the ox has been accustomed to gore in the past, and its owner has not kept it in, he shall repay ox for the ox, and the dead beast shall be his. Okay. So whose is it? Let's see if I got that straight there. First, the unanticipated goring in verse 35. Second one, the owner knows of the habit. Repay ox for ox, and you get the dead ox. Okay.
And I'm sure the pit, the man
you're not taking care of,
Something could fall on it.
yeah, or something,
So it wouldn't, it's just pits.
yeah,
If you do something, it costs an ample time.
yeah, yeah. So again, judges would take, and again, again, we talked about this, how many chapters there would have to be if God gave us for every situation there was all the way up until the 21st century. It'd be really nice. This is what you used to think about AI. This is how you should use AI. This is the whole thing. No, God gives us principles in His Word, and He lays a basis here for Israel the first, but it doesn't cover every situation. The judge has to be wise in applying to these situations. Okay, how you're responsible for negligence as well if you're bringing harm to other people. Okay. All right. I actually prepared enough to go through the first, 15 verses of 22. I don't know, it's court. Yeah, okay, let's keep going. We're having fun, right? If a man steals an ox or a sheep and kills it or sells it, he shall repay 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. Now, why? Why is it more for sheep and less, or more for oxen and less for sheep? Is there a difference?
Ox actually does more work and produces more money.
Okay, good. That's the answer. There he gets the prize tonight, okay? That's right. Okay? That's the reason, okay? Now verse 2. If a thief is found breaking in and is struck so that he dies, there shall be no bloodshed for him. But if the sun has risen on him, there shall be blood guilt for him. He shall surely pay. If he has nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. All right, so it's thought in the night, okay, they have more ill intent if they're coming in at night. Okay, you're not sure what they're up to, and you can't see, and you can imagine, they didn't have nice lights that automatically popped on at night or anything like that to indicate who it might be and all that kind of stuff. So God basically says, you have the right then. If you kill someone, you're free of charges, okay? They come in, you break into your house at night. But then he says, however, in the daylight, for this to take place in broad daylight, there's a possibility in their culture for you to cry out for help, to do some other things and not necessarily take somebody's life, okay? There's other passages that we probably deal with, if they're threatening you to kill you, that'd be one thing, self-defense. But if they're just coming to rob or something, a theft, then you shouldn't be kill them, okay? So, or you could be, and there's a couple things there again. That makes it more serious about not just killing somebody. Stops that. Let's see if there's anything else here. Allows for deadly force at night. Every thief caught in an act, they do have protection. Conversely, even if the victim of a serious crime could be prosecuted for murder, if the response could not be justified. Okay, so if you kill somebody and your response could not be justified. So we understand why our laws are like they are. When I had the jury case at one time, they told us, this is what the judge and everybody told us at the end of the case was, if you ever shoot somebody and they're at your door at night, make sure you drag them in. They fall back out. Make sure you pull them back in, because it's at the door. That's what they told us, okay? But I thought that was interesting that they said that. What happened, the case that I was at was, I think it was, I don't know if it was Idlewater Baldwin, it was a black, they had a car that they didn't pay on. So you have a company who comes and tries to come in real quick and know how to take with the wrecker, back in real quick, take it, claim it, and take off. Problem is, this is the law. It's but they got caught before they got off the property. And if they get caught on the property, then they don't have legality. It's a strange thing. If they can get off the property before getting caught, then they're free, you know. But if they get caught on the property, so this was the whole case, and the guy came out with a gun. Who's out there taking my, with the wrecker, okay? So this whole case was, all right, did he, because if you just pull a gun on somebody, that's enough to be charged just by pointing a gun. So that was what the whole case was about. And it hung jury. I had one person who said, I'll never charge this guy. And one lady said, guilty all the way, no matter what. And I had like 8-4 hung jury kind of a situation after 3 or 4 days of trying to figure it out. And I think the case was retried. But those are the kind of situations you run into. Okay, next, let's see. Verse 4, is it now? If the stolen beast is found alive in his possession, whether it is an ox or a donkey or a sheep, he shall pay double. So if he gets the original back, it only has to pay double as well. Okay. If a man causes a field or vineyard to be grazed over, or lets his beast loose, and it feeds in another man's field, he shall make restitution from the best in his own field and his own vineyard. So you take care of your animals so they're not going over and eating somebody else's crops, okay? And if that happens, you're to give the best of yours in return. Verse 6, if a fire breaks out and catches the thorns so that the stacked grain or the standing grain of the field is consumed, he who started the fire shall make full restitution. Okay? Again, not being responsible. You destroy somebody else's field, you're responsible to pay for it. So Samson, what were you doing with those foxes and the fires in their tails, right? No wonder those Philistines got a little upset. Okay? If a man gives to his neighbor money or goods to keep safe, and it is stolen from the man's house, then if the thief is found, he shall pay double. Okay? If the thief is not found, however, they go searching, they can't find a thief. If the thief is not found, the owner of the house shall come near to God to show whether or not he has put his hand to his neighbor's property. So there's suspicion, all right? Did it really come up missing? Did some thief really take it, or did you take it? For every breach of trust, whether it is for an ox, or for a donkey, for a sheep, for a cloak, or for any kind of lost thing, of which one says, this is it, the case of both parties shall come before God. The one whom God condemns shall pay double to his neighbor. Now, the case is here a judgment, and there seems to be this coming before God somehow in an oath, and both claiming, the person could be innocent, he might be guilty. Okay? And so you're trying to figure out, how was this done? Okay? And it may presume that the seriousness of going before God with an oath and maybe calling a curse down on them if they're guilty, if they had enough fear of God, that would be enough to cause them to speak the truth, because God's curse would be on them if they were lying, that they might then tell the truth. Okay? I mean, take it serious enough for that to take place. Now, there's another case where, remember, and I don't know for sure, we'll probably come to that at some point here, it goes along, but remember there's a case of, the case where the woman has to drink something to prove whether she has been guilty or not, right?
If she lives or dies, then it shows guiltiness.
Yeah, because it swells up her if she's been lying, right? So we're not sure whether it was just the seriousness of the oath, or there was something else going on here, because we know in another case there was something they actually drank, and God would use that to bring about the curse on their life. So if you feared God right in culture, you would not want to bring God's judgment down on you. And God had been doing enough here, and we'll see later in Exodus here, God definitely gives them enough pictures of God's severity of judging people when they don't respond right. So, I don't know. But again, there's some, You know, how did this work out about going before God? It was serious enough. And so you wonder where we get our oaths. Put your hand on the Bible. Remember, I swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God, right? Maybe and I think that's where this comes from, right? All right. Verse 10. See, did we get, or not, yeah. If a man gives to his neighbor a donkey or an ox or sheep or beast to keep safe, and it dies or is injured or is driven away without anyone seeing it, an oath by the Lord again here shall be between them both to see whether or not he has put his hand to his neighbor's property. The owner shall accept the oath, and he shall not make restitution. There it is, okay? Well, we were just talking about, I got a little ahead of myself there. But if it is stolen from him, he shall make restitution to his owner. If it is torn by beasts, let him bring it as evidence. He shall not make restitution for what has been torn. Okay? So if there's evidence that that's the case, okay? And verse 14 and 15, if a man borrows anything of his neighbor and is injured or dies, the owner not being with it, he shall make full restitution. So if you borrowed somebody's animal and it got injured under your care, you're responsible and you need to make restitution. However, 15, if the owner was with it, you've hired the owner and there's an injury to the animal, okay, and then that danger risk comes with the cost of the fee to have them work, okay? So we'll quit there, but you're seeing how this is working through some of these different cases. But God gave them principles and some straight out statements. This is what you need to do in these cases, okay? And any questions, Judy?
I was just wondering how radically different this was than the Egyptian rules. Or if they even had
How
rules
much different?
in
Well,
Egypt.
probably the one we saw there was probably more like in line with the slavery. Maybe the severity of stealing. Maybe they would have put everybody to death for any kind of theft. Hey, who knows? You know, I'm not sure exactly. But that's one of the things I've seen stated over and over again in some of the commentaries, that the ancient culture, they were much more severe in judgments even than what God had. Much more rash in their judgments. Okay? Like the Muslims do with cutting off hands and stuff like that. Much more rash. And actually people who understand that and have looked at that, they realize God's laws were even gracious in dealing with the situations. So, yeah. So,
I've seen
Eric.
a lot of guys be very upset with their neighbors or family members for, not animals, but tools.
Borrowing something,
Borrowing things
and it comes back damaged.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
that rule is followed,
Yeah,
there's a lot better relationships.
right. It is. It's one of those things I did wrong once. I borrowed somebody's chainsaw, and I don't know if I goofed it up. I mean, the guy was nice and just took it because I was a pastor, but I don't know if I was responsible or not, for goofing up the chainsaw or not. But anyway, and anything else? Okay. Think about prayer requests or anything in particular right now? I know, again, the traveling.
The time when Moses, father-in-law came, and Moses was sitting there from day to that, all day, trying to solve these petty, relatively
Right.
issues.
Trying to do every kind of judgment.
Find a bunch of
Yeah,
wise men, and they can solve these smaller cases.
yeah. You see why, we'll see this as we go through there. For justice to be carried out, you have to have honest judges. You have to have honest witnesses. But our founders actually they tried to come up with checks and balances for all those situations, like to impeach a judge or whatever, ways to get rid of bad judges even, right? Yeah. So we just follow the playbook. Okay, that's all we need to do. All right. People are tired. Let's pray, okay? Father, thank you for tonight. Thank you for your provision. Again, I pray that you go before Michael and Nancy and Micah and Isaac. Lord, as they'll be leaving this week, pray for safety and, Lord, a profitable time as they go back. And, Lord, that you will show them some of the fruit, Lord, from their labors there. There'll be indications of that as they continue to lay out things and help in the ministry there. And, Lord, for health and different needs. Pray for others in our church that also that are not feeling well, that they can get well this week and be back with us next week. Lord, let him pray.